If one thing is made very clear by Kohei Horikoshi's Boku no Country for Old Academia, it's that he's a major fan of comic books, especially Western comic books, as a lot of his characters throughout the series are callbacks to comics, and he himself has admitted that he's taken inspiration from comic book heroes when writing Hiroaka. One of the most obvious influences is that of Spider-Man, Horikoshi's favorite hero. Though most of the inspiration is found within Deku, we notice a bit of Spider-Man in the first hero we ever see do hero work in universe, that being the wooden warrior of the concrete jungle, Kamui Woods. Kamui Woods is a new upstart pro hero in the Japanese circuit, debuting at the very beginning of Hiroaka, and throughout the story, even though a lot of his hero work happens in the background of said story, his rise to the hero ranks is evidence enough that he's making a true name for himself in the world. I mean, he was important enough to be called upon for the raid of the League of Villains base of operations. Though before we get too into that, we should actually understand the meaning behind said name. Kamui Woods' real name is Shinji Nishia, which if you dissect his name is in reference to his origin. First, of course, you have Shinji, which when broken down is directly Forest Child or Wooden Child. And then you have Nishia, which when broken down means Western Store or Western Market. So altogether, he is the Wooden Child of the Western Market. Now first, the Wooden or Forest Child aspect of his name is obviously in reflection of a few things. First, of course, his quirk, but alongside this, it's his hobbies and his promotional work, as he poses as a mascot for an anti-littering movement in Japan. Along with his preference for long, quiet walks in the woods, it makes sense that he wants to keep the forest clean. He is a child of the forest. Now, the Western Shop part of his name, or Western Market part of his name, is a little bit more interesting, and this seems to be in direct reference to how Kamui Woods is basically a wood-themed Spider-Man, a Western comic hero who would be found in a ton of Western stores and is a major part of the Western market, especially given his popularity. So Kamui Woods literally is the wooden child inspired by the Western market. And this aspect of his name is also reinforced by his backstory, as with his bio it says that before he became a pro hero, his adolescence was dark, compelling, and great, so much so that it got turned into a documentary and it exploded in popularity. This seems to reflect how Peter Parker's most important adventures happened during his adolescence and kickstarted the hero that he is today, which is especially true for the Ultimate Spider-Man universe. Now, his hero name is just as interesting as his real name, as Kamui Woods, when broken down, means either God of the Woods or Forest Deity, which fits really well given his quirk, Arbor. Arbor seems to be a mixture of a mutation and a transformation quirk, as the mutation part of his quirk changes the natural skin of Kamui Woods' body into that of wood, and then the transformation aspect of his quirk allows him to freely manipulate this wood of his body and manifest tendrils or branches anywhere from his body. Though at the moment it is unknown how far the mutation quirk is actually spread through his body. It could just be his arms and legs, but it's assumed it could be his entire body as well, given that he hides his face and identity. Now, the main use of his quirk comes from his wooden tendrils, as he can use them for a multitude of things, such as saving and securing civilians, or binding villains and completely immobilizing them. In fact, that's the style of hero work that Kamui Woods likes to focus on, as he's not someone who genuinely overpowers his enemy. Instead, he withers them down, even creating super moves for such purpose, like lacquer-rated chain prism. Along with this, Kamui Woods can also use his tendrils for mobility purposes, either by wrapping around parts of buildings and swinging freely through the streets, or using his branches to propel around. As long as it is attached to his body, the branches themselves seem to be moldable to a certain degree, but once severed or secure, they become dense and stiff as actual wood, which, funny enough, plays into his one and only weakness. That being that, at the end of the day, it is just wood, and his quirk falls prey to all the weaknesses of wood, such as flammability and explosives, and it's probably easy to assume that a really sharp cutting tool could be a problem for him, which means that in certain crisis scenarios, he's basically useless. So Kamui Woods makes up for this by aligning himself with other great heroes. Now, the purpose behind the quirk name Arbor seems to fit in a few ways. First, of course, we have the fact that the definition for the word arbor is just straight up tree, which is actually true for the Japanese word as well for his quirk, but then of course you have the wooden structures called arbors, which the intent purpose of an arbor is an arch built near a wooded area that allows plants to grow around it so that one can walk down a forested path without intruding on nature too much, which really fits Kamui Woods' love of nature and his love of peaceful, quiet walks in the woods. Now, design-wise, Kamui Woods seems to take a lot of inspiration from Spider-Man, as I mentioned before. found first in his general hero design, but mostly in his fighting style, as Kamui Woods prefers to immobilize his targets much like Spider-Man instead of beating them into submission. Along with this, he uses his quirk to swing around very similar to how Spider-Man does his web swinging, though the one real major difference between the two's fighting style is that Kamui Woods is very serious and straightforward when fighting. Spider-Man likes to trash talk a bit. Though Spider-Man isn't the only inspiration for Kamui Woods. As you see, aspects of older versions of Deku from prototype runs of Hero Aka are found in Kamui Woods' character. This is seen both in Kamui Woods' hero costume, as it's sort of an amalgamation of earlier concepts of Deku's hero costume, but also you have thematic elements as well that make the two very similar. First, of course, you have how they are both considered to be people who will create a new generation of heroes, with Deku being the protagonist of his own series and the future's own greatest hero, and Kamui Woods being one of the fastest rising talents in the pro hero scene. But we also see Kamui Woods' rise through fame to be very similar to Deku's development as a character throughout the story. As you see, both of them start as brand new heroes at the beginning of the story. Then they find themselves under the guidance of a veteran pro hero and team up with another rookie. And then as time goes on, they find themselves slowly getting better and better until within his first year of active duty as a pro hero, Kamui Woods finds himself the 7th top voted pro hero in all of Japan, which is an outstanding achievement for a new up and starting pro hero, and it just so happens to happen right after Deku learns to use 100% of his power for the first time and basically mastered shoot style. Along with this, you also have Kamui Woods' relationship with one of his teammates, Mount Lady, as it seems that Horikoshi is planning to pair up characters that are built from prototypes of his original cast. This budding romance is shown best through the few scenes that they have together, with them showing that they are growing closer and closer to each other, so much so that people in-universe are even asking if they're actually a couple off duty, which could just be a bit of a wink and a nod at his earlier drafts of Hero Aka, but also could be hints at future romantic subplots coming down the line, possibly between Deku and Uraraka. Though no matter what it is, it's fun world building nonetheless. And so I imagine that as the series goes on, this theme will continue as well, with Kamui Woods continuing to become more and more successful as a reflection of Deku's evolution throughout the manga, without the two ever directly coming in contact with each other or directly interacting. Kamui Woods acting as this kid's physical symbol of growth throughout the series, while also being an actual character and working as a pro hero in the background. Which, if you think about it, it's kind of fitting that the man named Forest Child is a tree-like manifestation of another kid's growth. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MetiNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to bloom and develop as a person, you should buy yourself a copy of Shimonetta at buyshimonetta.com.